She introduced me as her driver at a party I helped pay for weeks later. She tried to use my credit card to impress her colleagues, but I canceled it and exposed everything in front of them. I'm 32, and I've been dating Susan, who's 29, for about 2 years. We met through some mutual friends during a trivia night at a bar. She was stunning and confident, and everyone gravitated towards her. I fell hard for her. Susan works in IT at a tech company downtown, starting in an entry-level support position. The pay isn't the best, but she always talked about it as if she was in charge. Meanwhile, I run a small general contracting business. It's not glamorous, but I built it from scratch and I'm proud of that. It pays the bills and then some. At first, our relationship felt perfect. We spent weekends exploring the city, trying out new restaurants, and watching indie films at her favorite little theater. But looking back, there were always signs that things weren't quite right. She'd make little comments about my clothes, joke about my truck, and in the 2 years we dated, she never introduced me to her work friends. I brushed it off because I was in love. About a month ago, Susan mentioned her company was throwing a big client appreciation party at a swanky hotel downtown. She was stressed about organizing it. One night, while scrolling through her phone, she casually said that Jessica from work was bringing her boyfriend, who's a lawyer or something. I thought, oh, can I come? I offered to help with the expenses since I knew she was feeling the financial pinch. Her rent had gone up, and she hinted at needing to move. So I ended up covering the cost of her dress, which was $450, a $200 gift basket for her boss, and a few other supplies. Not exactly a fortune, but it wasn't pocket change either. When the party night came, I cleaned up in my best suit, the one I saved for meeting potential big clients, and got a fresh haircut. But when I picked her up in my truck, she seemed distracted and barely acknowledged my effort, only asking if I remembered the gift basket. As we walked through the hotel lobby, I noticed her tense up beside me. She started walking ahead of me, creating some space. Maybe you should wait at the bar, she suddenly suggested. I need to check on some things first. I offered to help her, saying, I can carry something, but she looked annoyed. When we entered the ballroom, I was blown away. Everything looked fantastic. An open bar, fancy appetizers, and mood lighting. But then, Susan spotted some colleagues and went over, leaving me to follow behind. Susan, everything looks amazing, said a woman in a sleek black dress. Who's this? There was an awkward pause. I reached out to introduce myself when Susan jumped in. This is Alex, my driver for the evening. Her colleague looked confused, glancing at my suit as if she didn't buy it. You're a driver? She asked, eyebrows raised. Yeah, I said. Susan laughed too loudly, saying, he was nice enough to drop me off, but now he's actually heading out. Right? Alex. Felt like a punch to the gut. 2 years together and I was just her driver. I gently took her elbow and steered her away from the group. What was that about? I asked quietly, trying to keep calm. She rolled her eyes and glanced around, making sure no one was watching. Look, these people are important. My career is on the line here. You really should just wait in the car or something. I reminded her that I helped pay for this party. I bought your dress. That's when she shot back at me with pure contempt. You should be grateful I even let you in. In that moment, everything clicked. Those little signs weren't just quirks or bad moods. This was who she really was. I didn't argue, just nodded and said, you're right, before walking away. After picking up my jacket, I drove home in silence. By the time I got back, my phone was blowing up with texts and calls from Susan. Where are you? Are you seriously leaving me stranded? Don't be dramatic. You're embarrassing me. I didn't reply. I turned off my phone and opened a beer, feeling surprisingly calm, like I'd finally woken up from a long dream. The next morning, Susan showed up at my door, her eyes puffy from crying, but her makeup was still perfect, always ready for a camera. What happened last night? She demanded. You just left me there. I had to get an Uber home. I leaned against the door frame, not inviting her in. You called me your driver. It was just a joke. God, you're so sensitive. Those people are important to my career. I don't want them thinking I'm dating a contractor. I finished for her. She looked a bit ashamed for a moment. That's not what I meant. It's complicated office politics and all that. Then the tears came and she was good at that, crying on cue. She told me how sorry she was, how stressed she'd been about impressing her boss, and how she'd make it up to me. She even suggested a weekend getaway, just the two of us. I love you, she said, touching my face. You know that, right? Last night was a mistake. I was being stupid. I let her think I believed her, invited her in, made coffee, and listened to her explanations. A few days later, things seemed back to normal on the surface. She was extra affectionate, sending me texts with heart emojis and chatting about our future. Then, about a week after the party, she called excitedly. Babe, guess what? My birthday's in a couple of weeks, and I was thinking of hosting a dinner for some colleagues at that new fancy place, Antonelli's. I kept my tone neutral and said, that sounds nice. But then she dropped the bomb. I'm a bit short on cash this month after the party and everything. Do you want to help pay for it? I already knew the answer. Would you? It would mean so much to me. Just my work friends, a chance to network a bit. I noticed she didn't invite me to join. How much are we talking? I asked. Probably around $1,200 for the private dining room. They need a card on file. I can put my card down for you. Just let me know when you need it, I replied. You're the best, she squealed. I'll come by tomorrow to get it. The next day, when she showed up, I handed her my credit card. She took it with a smile, not realizing it wasn't my usual card. So, what time should I be there? I asked casually. Her smile faltered. Actually, it's just going to be work people. Boring shop talk and all that. You wouldn't enjoy it. Got it. I nodded, pretending to understand. No problem. Thanks for understanding, she said, giving me a quick kiss before leaving. On the day of her dinner, I called my credit card company and reported the card I gave her as lost. They canceled it and issued me a new one. Then I dressed in my best suit, nicer than the one I wore to her work party, and headed to Antonelli's. Instead of using the main entrance, I grabbed a seat at the bar with a good view of the private dining room while staying partially hidden by a decorative divider. They arrived around 7:30. Susan looked stunning in a new dress I hadn't seen before, surrounded by her colleagues. I recognized the woman from the party who had heard her call me her driver. There was also a guy I didn't know who kept resting his hand on her lower back. She didn't seem to mind. In fact, she leaned into it. I ordered a scotch and watched as they laughed, took photos, and made toasts. Susan was clearly in her element, the center of attention. I noticed how different she looked, confident and animated, nothing like the complaining girlfriend who was just an IT support person. At 9:45, right on schedule, the server brought the check to their table. I watched as Susan confidently handed over my credit card, a smug smile on her face as she waved away her colleagues' offers to split the bill. It's my birthday. This is my treat, she probably said. Minutes passed, and then I saw the server lean down to speak quietly with Susan. Her expression shifted from confusion to panic. She started fumbling with her phone, probably checking her banking app before quickly texting me. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Alex, something's wrong with your card. It's declining. Call me now. I didn't reply. Another message came through. This is serious. I look like an idiot in front of everyone. The bill is over $1,200. Still, I stayed silent, sipping my scotch and watching the drama unfold. Susan looked visibly flustered now, her face flushed as she made excuses to her colleagues. I could see her trying other cards from her wallet. All maxed out, I guessed, since she just complained about her credit card debt last week. After 5 increasingly desperate messages, I finally replied, Look behind you. I observed her read the message, her head snapping up in confusion. Then she turned around, scanning the room until her eyes landed on me at the bar. The color drained from her face. I stood up, paid for my drink, and walked calmly toward their private dining room, pulling an envelope from my jacket pocket as I approached. The sudden silence that fell when I entered was almost comical. Susan's eyes widened in horror. Several people at the table seemed to recognize me, including the woman from the party. "Isn't this your driver?" one of them asked Susan. I smiled pleasantly at the table. "Actually, I was her boyfriend for 2 years. The guy who had been touching Susan's back shifted away from her. Her boss, a stern woman at the head of the table, stared at the photos with narrowed eyes. "Alex, can we talk about this outside?" Susan hissed, her face now bright red. "No need," I replied cheerfully. "I just want to wish you a happy birthday and let you know that the card was canceled and reported lost yesterday." She shrieked, abandoning any trace of composure. "You did what?" I stood straighter, adjusting my suit jacket. "And just to answer your question from 2 weeks ago, no, I'm not grateful you let me in, but I'm grateful for the clarity." I turned to the table. "Enjoy the rest of your evening, everyone. The check is all yours, Susan." She jumped up, grabbing my arm. "You can't just leave. At least pay the bill." I looked at her hand on my arm and then back at her face. "Fuck off," I said quietly before walking out. As I left, I could hear the chaos erupting behind me. Susan yelling my name, people murmuring in confusion, someone suggesting they all split the bill. I didn't look back. The next day, my phone was blowing up with texts and calls from Susan, alternating between begging for forgiveness and threatening to ruin my reputation. I blocked her number. She showed up at my house twice, but I didn't answer. She left tearful voicemails from friends' phones, and I deleted them without listening. A week later, one of her colleagues actually reached out to me on LinkedIn. Apparently, there was an HR investigation at her company after her boss found out Susan had been lying about her role and responsibilities, claiming credit for projects she hadn't worked on. The guy who had been touching her at the restaurant was a senior developer she had been secretly seeing, and he distanced himself from her after the dinner incident. 2 weeks after the birthday dinner, I got a knock at my door. When I opened it, an older couple stood there, looking uneasy. The resemblance to Susan was undeniable. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Davis, I said, genuinely surprised. I had only met them once briefly when they were passing through town. "Alex," her father said, looking troubled. "May we come in?" I let them in, curious about what brought them here. We sat in my living room, the atmosphere heavy with awkward tension. "We wanted to apologize," her mother finally said, "for Susan's behavior, for everything." Her father nodded. "She's been struggling since that night at the restaurant. Lost her job, had to move back home with us." I felt a pang of sympathy, though I didn't want Susan to suffer. I just wanted her out of my life. "No, don't apologize," her mother insisted. "She did this to herself. We've always known Susan could be materialistic, and we probably indulged it too much when she was younger." Her father looked ashamed. "We encouraged her to find someone financially stable, told her to use her looks while she had them, but we never thought she'd go this far." That explained a few things. I remembered her father joking about Susan landing a big fish when he found out I owned my own business. "She told us what happened," her father continued. "Not the first time. She came home with some story about you humiliating her, but we eventually got the truth out of her." Her mother reached for her purse and pulled out an envelope. "She's too ashamed to come herself, but we wanted you to have this." Inside was a check for $925 and a handwritten note for the dress, the gift basket, and everything else.
"I'm sorry."
I stared at the check. It wasn't about the money for me. It never had been. "We made her take responsibility," her father explained. "Made her sell some of her designer things to pay you back. It's a small step, but it's something." "Thank you," I said, folding the check back into the envelope. "I appreciate you coming by." Apparently, she had deleted all her social media accounts, going offline to focus on personal growth or something. As for me, my business is thriving. I started dating again cautiously. I had coffee last week with a woman who's a kindergarten teacher. When I told her I was a contractor, she asked thoughtful questions about my work and seemed genuinely interested in my answers. Sometimes I think back to that moment in the hotel ballroom when Susan called me her driver. As painful as it was, I'm grateful for it now. Some people show you who they are in big moments, while others reveal themselves in small, casual cruelties. Either way, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. I just wish I'd believed it sooner. Oh, and about the credit card situation. No, she couldn't have gotten in trouble for fraud. The card was legitimately given to her, and I didn't report it as stolen, just lost. In that situation, the bank will just cancel it and send a new one. And yeah, leaving her with that bill was a bit petty, but honestly, after being used like a mobile cash machine for 2 years, I felt like I had a right to a little bit of pettiness.